I want to talk about our brains today. Our brains, as you may have heard, like to be busy. They don't like to be unemployed, to not have a job, to not have an activity. So our brains are always looking for a job. And this is why we create, or we experience our brain creating thoughts after thoughts after thoughts all the time. And if you've ever meditated or practiced mindfulness, you notice they call this the monkey mind. You notice this kind of constant chatter and constant energy and all of this stuff and all these thoughts, and they're like a river just flowing by you, and you kind of get overwhelmed at just the practice of trying not to have thoughts. It's wild. Your brain is always doing that. So something that's really helped me was understanding this idea that your thoughts are not inherently true. Just because you have a thought over and over and over again doesn't mean that it's true. Maybe it feels true because it feels familiar. You've had this thought over and over. In a sense, you're teaching yourself that it's true just through repetition. Or it feels true because it connects to like a very primal, powerful base emotion like fear or outrage, right? So our brains are very good at worrying because it triggers fear, and fear causes us to shut down. And the more we have these thoughts over and over, the more they feel true. So I thought what I would do today is share with you a couple of my thoughts as a person who manages anxiety. I have been able to identify these, and it's, this is my work. This is not something that I have just locked in, but something that I do is I notice them, and I notice the way that they create a reaction. One of those thoughts would be, I'm going to run out of money. Now, this thought is not connected to math. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. It's always relative. Maybe I've got a little less in my bank account this year than I did or late last year, and so I look at that and I think I'm running out of money. It's going down. That's not a mathematical equation, is it? It's not giving me a churn rate or a burn rate. It's not saying at this rate you're spending this amount per day, after this many days you will be out of money. No. And in fact, that would be more productive. So that's one way that you could actually deal with it, is to respond to that childlike negative fear-based disaster scenario thought with some actual data. Amazing how that changes the equation. You start having a conversation as an adult to a child instead of a child to a child, where one child says, oh no, everything's going to go wrong. And then the other child goes, okay, what do I do? And you just react in that negative way, right? So this is a nice visual, I think, for that anxious moment. Is it's actually an exchange between the thought and how you respond to it, the real you. Another thing you can do that helped me a lot in my journey with mental health and in my journey with confidence was to recognize this idea that a worry is a spiral if you go into it. And in that sense, it's an invitation. Like, hey, do you want to spiral today? Here's a thought you can worry a lot about, like you're going to run out of money. So if you want to, this is very important, you can go into that spiral. And if you don't want to, you don't have to go into that spiral at all. And the solution, something I learned from my very first therapist that has really changed my life, is to say, okay. So imagine that in the conversation, you have this very negative, intense, frightening thought, emotionally triggering fear, overwhelm, and then you respond with calmness, with confidence, without needing to match the energy and get engaged. Okay. So there's an energy shift, right? You're I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. You're sort of tamping out or diffusing or extinguishing that energy coming from that fearful thought. And notice you're just saying, okay, you're not necessarily fighting it on its own terms. You're not debating it. You're not trying to solve it or outthink it or anything like that, or even address it. You're just acknowledging, okay, that's happening. I'm not going to fight that fight. This is also known as grounding. And if you have OCD, if you have rumination, if you find yourself focusing a lot on a negative thought, this is an amazing tool, is to have that thought and I encourage you to do this, and this is going to feel uncomfortable, and it should, but it's to actually let that thought flood you. Like when you have that anxious thought, where do you feel it? For me, I feel it right here. It gets tight. It gets like a vice grip right in my chest, right to my chest and my throat, like right in here. And just have the thought and let it kind of flood you. And then this is really tricky or uncomfortable. Don't resolve it. Just let it sit. Don't even say okay yet. But have that energy of like, yeah, this is happening. This is a feeling I'm having. And just sit in it for a few seconds, maybe a few more. And what you will notice is that it will be very uncomfortable, and then it will start to dissipate. Because you're actually so good at extinguishing this type of thing and moving past it. So that's a couple of different ways that you can resolve an anxious thought, is by identifying it, and then you can respond to it as an adult with data instead of responding with the same feelings. You can not match the thought or debate the logic of the spiral by just saying okay, or you can even just let it happen and then just let it sit and let yourself sit and go through it. And what you will find is that it will dissipate. And then on the other side of that, you might realize something that's really helpful. So when it comes to the fear of running out of money, when it comes to the fear of worst case scenario, whatever it is you might be dealing with, those are 3 ways that you can deal with that anxiety that are productive, that are not going to perpetuate the problem, and should help you move forward with your day and with your life in a happier state. And I hope you try those, and I hope those work for you.